Hello, my name is Barry Hilton. I'm the Managing Director of Mercuri International UK. We're sales experts with 60 years of experience helping our clients measurably improve sales performance. Over the last 2 years, our business has concentrated on the conceptualization of content and the delivery of the Sales Executive Level 4 qualification. The focus of this masterclass is to clarify in detail the skill set required to be successful at remote selling. Also to highlight why customer expectations are changing and how salespeople can best adapt. To provide guidance on how best to recover optimum levels of sales fitness after a period of reduced activity. To offer ideas about ramping up sales activity to levels which meet the challenges of the future. And to support sustainable change in sales behaviours over a longer term period by achieving some quick wins in the short term. To put the takeaways from this masterclass in focus, it's important to contextualise why we want to share our views. The sales world was already changing before March 2020. Early adopters of this change were doing things differently. This was happening both at organisational and individual level, but it's significant to recognise that many businesses were operating with a sales model which hadn't evolved much since the year 1900. The background chatter amongst sales professionals has increased in volume recently. The motivation to do our job differently has definitely gained traction, but has not yet achieved critical mass. This meant that willingly or reluctantly, more organisations were beginning to evaluate their sales approach and customer channels. The revolution had started, but most people hadn't noticed. When the world turned upside down in March 2020, every organisation was forced to take action and attempt to deal with massive and sudden change. Most fixes in place right now are probably viewed as temporary until we get back to normal. The thing is, whether you decide to revert to the old way or reboot, the entire commercial landscape has altered massively, whilst most sales forces have been hibernating. This doesn't mean traditional approaches will not work in the future. It does mean that they will not work as well, or it will take much more effort and expense to make them work. It's neat to divide the challenges facing salespeople into two groups. We'll call them pre-COVID and COVID or post-COVID. This second group does not replace the first, it simply compounds it. So let's consider the pre-COVID group first. Sales teams are expensive and in general, efficiency is difficult to quantify. Minimising carbon footprint has zoomed up the priority list, and let's face it, sales teams have big carbon feet. The biggest disruptor to the traditional sales world has been the impact of the internet on our buyer economy and autonomy. Most brands are good or excellent now, and differentiation is becoming more difficult. So how do you effectively sell value? Buying processes are more complex, selling behaviours have not evolved to keep pace. Jobs are no longer for life, and finding and retaining talent takes effort. This is not always done well. When we consider the COVID and post-COVID challenges, technology has been thrust upon salespeople. Many companies and individuals struggle with it, and it's used in an indiscriminate and tactical way at the moment. Markets have contracted and competition is fierce. It's difficult to be heard above the market white noise. Furlough means simply that sales teams have got ring rusty and customers have hunkered down and they're waiting to see what happens next. Caution is the mantra everywhere. Social distancing has disrupted norms. Mental and physical well-being are top of everyone's agenda. Companies are asking themselves, is there another way to sell? Who and what do we need to be successful? Many are desperate to return to the past, but that comfort zone has gone forever. The big message which needs to be delivered and received in a very neutral way is that massive change is a reality. And if you're not changing something right now, there is an unquantified risk to your future success. Let's look at a DNA map of the successful next generation salesperson. We need to have a picture of the landscape that we must operate on, and this allows us to look in more detail at the DNA profile of successful salespeople who can thrive in this new world. And it makes sense to break down the DNA code into 3 easy to understand subcategories: what people need to know, what they need to be able to do, and how they need to behave. Let's call those knowledge, skills, and behaviors, quite familiar terms. You might want to use this as a calibration for yourself, your team, or your organization because it applies both individually and collectively. So we must have a strong personal brand on social media platforms, and we're going to go into that in some detail later in this masterclass. We need to be able to have an informed conversation about the big picture in business terms. And we must understand the world of business, how profit is generated for the customer and within our own organization. We must also be comfortable with using technology for communication, for data mining, and also for data management. When it comes to applying the knowledge, we must be comfortable with agile working practices. We must be articulate and demonstrate value to the customer. We need to be organized and be able to plan effectively. Efficiency and accountability are vital. We must manage sales activity and measure its output. Integrating technology at every stage of the engagement with customers is vital, and an ability to challenge the norm with customers and within our organization is also very helpful. Flexibility in our communication style and a capability of communicating at all levels within customer organizations is also an essential skill. To support this, the salesperson must be ethical and demonstrate fundamental values of respect and fairness and professionalism. We need to be empathetic, but not preoccupied with being liked or being everyone's friend. Customers buy solutions, they don't buy relationships. We need to be unthreatened by change or challenge and also be prepared to continue to modify and develop a contemporary approach to sales. We need to be able to work as part of a team. As the processes of selling are becoming more collegiate, we definitely need to rely on others. Resilience is also important. As the market becomes even more competitive, an additional level of mental toughness may be needed. Before we examine some practical actions that can be taken at an individual and collective level in organizations, it's useful to clarify where the sales process has changed most. The typical buying journey has 3 stages. The buyer recognizes that there is a need to change something. This causes an evaluation of the options available to achieve the desired change. A decision is made about which option will be chosen. We'll call this the RED journey, or the RED journey for short. Pre-internet, salespeople entered this RED journey at one of 3 points depending on various factors. They joined after recognition occurred, or if they were lucky, just before or during the recognition step. Often, they joined during the evaluation step, positioning themselves as subject matter experts or as part of the Me Too sales fraternity. Then the internet came along. Buyers are able to complete far more of the journey without any help from salespeople now. They recognize that the beginning of the evaluation process uses comparison data, price matching, online reviews, and all of the other components of discovery, and those are now available to people without talking to salespeople. By the time the salesperson is invited into the RED journey, the decision is almost made. Salespeople may only be providing validation or being used to apply pressure on a preferred supplier. This level of buyer autonomy has bumped the salesperson's entry well away from the beginning of the RED journey and towards the end. And the 3 common entry points have moved and are now just before the decision step, or if they're very lucky, during the evaluation step, or if they're very unlucky, during the validation step of the decision process. This last option is very undesirable and usually means lots of wasted time, disappointment, and failure. Entering the red journey early and rebalancing the disruption created by the internet requires the DNA profile of the contemporary salesperson to be applied in a particular way, and will begin with the creation of a strong personal brand. Whether you call it social selling or remote selling or just selling, this change is very likely to be the default setting for customer interaction moving forward. Having a strong personal brand is essential. This is effectively your online persona and how you will be evaluated by potential customers. You need to create a compelling profile on LinkedIn. Ensure all the information about you is complete and any photograph is as businesslike and professional as possible. Also, consider who will be able to see it, what access is given. Remove anything that might dilute the power of your brand. Work on creating an engaging and distinctive personal statement. Avoid both the bland and the outrageous. Develop a sharp and flexible value message built around you and your brand. What exactly do you personally bring to the party? Build a wide and credible network of contacts. Look for every opportunity to expand your network. Consider the use of paid-for additional services such as Sales Navigator. This will allow you to make approaches to targeted prospects. Refresh your content and your links frequently. Update regularly and remain on top of things. Stay in touch with topical industry and customer issues and be prepared to contribute comments, insights, and perspectives. Share content where you believe that's relevant and express some original thought, even if it does challenge your norms or some others. Above all, be consistent and make it a core, not a peripheral or occasional activity. LinkedIn's the most obvious business-focused social media platform, but Facebook and Twitter are also of value in building your personal brand. Many training programs are now available to help with this personal brand building, and it's worthwhile investigating these. You need to model best practice. Don't talk about it, do it. Work with technology every day and make it part of your core activity. Become familiar with the various platforms which are used to communicate virtually, such as Teams or Skype, Zoom, BlueJeans, Connect, all are similar platforms. And dress for business. Agile working doesn't mean lower standards. Become comfortable with video technology. Ensure your setup is quiet and it's well lit and it's professionally positioned. Think about what is behind you and whether that sends the right message. Invest in good headphones and a proper microphone. Avoid relying on integrated devices which often pick up keyboard thumps and clicks. Always shut down all your other applications and switch off other devices when interacting with customers, and make your sessions interactive where possible. Be confident and prepared to screen share and present where necessary. You need to listen actively. It's really important to always remember that you're visible and mute when you're not speaking. Have all of the necessary resources and tools to hand and get your camera angle right. Eye level is best, and place your laptop on top of something, maybe a screen or a box or stand, just to get that nice contact with the screen. We need to use technology consistently across the sale. Prospect and research your markets online. Use social networking platforms and the internet to find and understand prospect organizations, markets, industry issues, key people, and the competitive landscape. Build a pattern of approach and contact which adds some value and provides information and ideas. Leverage your personal brand by making yourself visible and interesting online. Ensure your sales approach and discovery process uncovers and tracks information in the form which is friendly to your own CRM system. You don't want to do the work twice. Conduct your discovery conversations with that in mind and populate the required fields through your sales conversations. Don't be afraid to use technology and tools for client interaction and communication if it adds value. This would include video calling or texting or social media messaging if that's appropriate. This can also include an initial approach through platforms like LinkedIn or Facebook. Use technology to enhance solution presentations. Consider whether some client interactions can be performed more effectively remotely, and be prepared to have this discussion with your customers openly and with a view to saving time and money and increasing efficiency for both you and them. Actively seek opportunities to introduce technology into your sales activities. Think in terms of virtual meetings and presentations and short training sessions that you might run for customers. Whatever you do, don't look back. Challenge any personal tendency to resort to comfort zone sales behaviour. That includes coffee tourism, speculative sales pursuits, travelling any distance for unscheduled meetings, and displacement activities which can't be tracked to a quantifiable pipeline contribution. This could be the biggest regressive step if you fall into that trap. Evaluate your patterns of sales activity in general and decide where technology might be able to help make you more effective. Set some targets to reduce the amount of old style or comfort zone sales activity that you perform, and reinvest this in more contemporary activities and improving your personal brand and use of technology to sell. Customer expectations are changing. It's another important element to cover in this masterclass, and it's these changing expectations that have salespeople slightly confused. We've already seen that buyer autonomy is higher than ever before thanks to the internet. Salespeople enter the red journey later than ever. Customers want to conduct business in a different way now. It may be that in the near future, they want to eliminate some or even all face-to-face meetings from the sales process, which is perhaps quite a remarkable and shocking thing to think about. Buyer expects salesperson to walk in their shoes these days, to take time to understand the business and challenges. This is essential to creating seller credibility. Buyers expect salespeople to add value beyond what they could find out for themselves on the internet. And buyers expect expertise. So it's imperative to know your offer relative to that of your competition and to be able to differentiate it convincingly. The standard of sales professionalism expected now is much higher than ever before, and we must demonstrate that sales excellence. I described that we would address the issue of developing a short and medium and long-term fitness plan for sales teams, and it's time to do that. It's important for companies to recognise that their salespeople are returning to work in an unfamiliar and uncertain environment. The past has passed. Doing things the old way will not work like it used to. So before we all fire up the turbos, stop and have a think. What might be useful to change and why? What can be realistically expected after 30, 60, 90 and 120 days in terms of activity, pipeline building and sales performance? What worked well, if you continued to work during the lockdown, and what created some challenges? Discuss this with others in your organisation, your colleagues. What proper short-term development do you need personally to feel competent and capable to face the challenges of the future? Think about experiences relating to the use of remote technology during the previous few months. How competent are you? And what support is required? If your market has actually experienced a short-term boom, quantify the duration and the consequences of a return to normal levels of customer activity. What impact will this have? And what steps are necessary now to maintain the momentum that you've built up? Consider the mental well-being of both colleagues and customers. What will minimise stress and anxiety in terms of working practice and customer interaction? Create a proper environment for this. And it's important that it's openly and sensitively discussed. Resist the temptation to be short-term and a busy fool by reflecting on the difference between the firefighting that you might have to do now and creating a sustainable plan. I mentioned the importance of staged action planning, so set realistic and measurable goals around personal development, change and sales activity and the results for the immediate 30 working days ahead. Create a defined but less rigid framework for a little bit further out, 60 to 120 days. But lay down some aspirational 120-day goals, which should indicate significant progress if you achieve them. Beyond the immediate short term, activities can be fine-tuned depending on the progress that you've made. Predicting the market appetite for returning to normal levels of business is impossible. It's better to begin by focusing on what is within your own circle of control. Personal customer-facing activity, upskilling, and knowledge acquisition. Focus on these. Explore alternative ways of completing activities. For example, if you've visited a particular customer every 2 weeks previously and that travel is now not possible, begin to schedule your activity plans by discussing new arrangements with that customer. They're likely to be more open to those discussions now than ever before. Use this opportunity to stop habitual activities with customers which are not productive or have been problematic in the past. They may become less so in a future environment. When evaluating your pipeline opportunities, factor in the possibility of further delays or postponements. Avoid forecasting sales performances which cannot be guaranteed and are beyond your circle of control. You can make some quick wins, and these can lead to longer term benefits. At the beginning, I promised an insight into where those could be. Firstly, and most importantly, don't settle back into that old routine. The world's moved on and you must do that too. Fill gaps in personal capability and activity through training or changes in your sales activity planning. Stop the habitual activities which before lockdown were limiting your success. You've the perfect excuse to reset customer expectations right now. And also set realistic but stretching short-term goals and focus them around capability and activity, not result. Remember, you cannot manage result, but you can manage activity. Reflect on what future success should look like and begin to organise activity and development to achieve that. Undertake a systematic review of your approach to customer interaction and look for efficiency improvement opportunities everywhere. There'll be plenty. Reset on the long-term balance between success and that all-important mental well-being. In summary, change is here. We must embrace it and not cling to the past. Recognise areas for improvement and prioritise them. Take small steps and assess the result of each modification as you make it. Listen to customers and how they want to work going forward. Focus on activity and result will follow. Don't procrastinate. I hope the content of this masterclass has provided you with not just food for thought, but also some fuel for action. Good luck. Change brings opportunity as well as challenge.